Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure review. Today, we are jumping into the time machine as we travel back to the mid-90s. And we are going to look at this action figure, which is probably close to 27 or maybe like 28 years old. This is from Jim Lee's WildC.A.T.S, Covert Action Teams, as produced by Playmates. We have Pike, the Chief Enforcer of the Cabal. Beautiful artwork on the card. Here's Pike as illustrated by Jim Lee. I remember this being one of my favorite figures during the mid-90s. There was something really cool about this action figure. For one, I thought it captured Pike's likeness to the T. The sculpting was great. In terms of the proportions of the figure, I thought it nailed Jim Lee's looks like spot on. Everything about the proportions of the figure had a very dynamic build, very heroic proportions. I loved how like his belt and his harness had some like outlining in it to like really bring out the details, and his accessories were awesome. He came with this like it's almost like a two-part baton that you could attach together to create a longer staff. And then he had his pistol. On the back of the box, you have the lineup of all the figures, and there were a lot. I believe Pike he might have been part of Series 2, I think. And you have all the copy and information about the world and the characters. You know, they spared no expense here. You know, it was awesome. You get a Damonite logo on the display base, the breakaway battle staff, like I highlighted earlier, his blaster. Much like old G.I. Joe figures, you had a bio card, a really meaty one. Lots of information about him. They could cut and save. Excellent figure. Wonderful comic book during this time period. Very lucky to have them. And lucky for you, I do have a loose one that we could take a look at. So here is my actual Pike action figure from my youth. Great action figure. Like I said, I love the sculpting and the proportions. It's very heroic and muscular in its build. It looks like it leapt. This looks like it literally leaped off the comic book page. You know, they did such a great job of capturing the look that Jim Lee created for this character. It's odd with the color scheme though, because on the toy and the figure, it's kind of like red with like a drab olive green. But the character in the comic book, as you can see here, was red and almost like black and gray. Part of me thinks that they changed the color of the figure because to avoid any like legal issue with Marvel Comics. Because in all honesty, if the first time I saw this character in the comic book, my first thought was, this guy looks like a bootleg Deadpool. Deadpool debuted a couple of years earlier in the New Mutants comic book, and then he was later showcased prominently in X-Force, and later in his own miniseries and comic book series. So the character was gaining popularity. But, you know, you look at this, it looks kind of like Deadpool. So for the longest time, I always kind of believed that the reason why the action figure had this color scheme with the olive green as opposed to the black or grays is just to avoid the legal issue. You know, this looks like Deadpool. You know, if you give him the right color scheme. And, you know, even his weapon loadout, you know, Deadpool has swords. This guy kind of has like a two-part staff. You know, they're both experts with like guns and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a wonderful action figure. I just love the way it looks. Unfortunately, it suffers from the limited articulation that action figures had in the 90s. I believe this guy is probably maybe 5 to 6 points of articulation. His head rotates. Arms rotate. I want to say, oh yeah, okay, so the wrists or the forearms rotate, waist swivel, and then the legs move. Unfortunately, the figure's kind of pre-posed. For whatever reason, in the 90s, toy designers were obsessed with, like, instead of giving action figures a very neutral pose, they were always kind of like predispositioned in some sort of like semi like not necessarily a neutral stance, but almost like a battle ready stance. So even though he has articulations, kind of pointless moving stuff around because he wouldn't hold a pose all that well unless he had him on the display stand. Hence my belief that most of these figures were aimed more at older collectors, to be used as display pieces, not necessarily for kids to be played with as toys. Wonderful figure. Loved the comic book. The cartoon was kind of mediocre, unfortunately, but, you know, that's how things were back then. So yeah, great toy. I really wish they'd revisit this era in the comic books and give us, you know, an updated look, or an updated figure of Pike, but more so with like modern engineering. So yeah, overall great figure. Very happy to have him. So if you grew up during this time period, I hope this, you know, was a little bit of nostalgia for you. You know, for me, I loved the older Playmates toys. This era was fantastic. Alright, so let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.